There are places locals avoid, even during the day. Such houses are always surrounded by rumors. Someone died, someone went mad, someone heard voices. But in every rumor, there is a grain of truth. I'm going to tell you a story that happened in the late 90s in a small Ukrainian town where I used to live. A story I first heard from the neighbors and later saw with my own eyes. On the outskirts of town stood a house, a 2-story brick building with cracked windows and a collapsed roof. It once belonged to the family of an engineer named Viktor Savchuk. They said Viktor was a respected man, worked at a factory, and had a wife and 2 daughters. But in the early 90s, he quit his job, started drinking, his wife left, and a couple of years later he was found dead right there in the house. His death was ruled natural, a heart attack, but after the funeral, strange things began. People who tried to buy the house complained of night rustling and footsteps. One family even moved out after a week, leaving all their belongings behind. In 1997, a new family moved into the house, a young couple with a small son. I knew them, Alexander and Marina, quiet, hard-working people. They bought the house cheaply and decided to renovate it. For a while, everything was calm. But soon, neighbors began to notice strange things. Lights would burn in the windows at night, even though the family claimed they were asleep. They heard what sounded like someone banging on the pipes or dragging furniture. One day, Marina told my mother, they were friends, that her son had started complaining. "Mom, a man walks around the house at night." "What man?" she asked, surprised. "A bald man. He's mean. He wakes me up." Marina thought it was her child's imagination, but soon she herself woke up in the middle of the night and saw the shadow of a male figure in the hallway. After a few months, the family changed. Alexander became nervous, irritable, and quit his job. Marina looked pale, with dark circles under her eyes. They said they constantly heard whispers. Footsteps would wake them up at night. One day, Marina came to my mother in tears. She claimed to have found strange symbols scratched into the basement wall with a nail. Circles and crosses. She tried to paint over them, but they reappeared. Soon, Alexander started drinking. People said that one day, neighbors saw him in the yard screaming into the darkness, "Leave me alone! Go away! This is my house!" But there was no one there. In January 1998, something happened that the whole neighborhood would talk about. One night, neighbors heard a woman scream. When they rushed over, the door was open. Marina was lying in the hallway unconscious, with her son crying nearby. Alexander was nowhere to be found. His body was found a week later in a ravine outside of town. The official version was an accident. He fell and died. But here's the strange part. A look of horror was frozen on his face, and his hands were clenched as if in a struggle, as if he were pushing someone away. After the funeral, Marina and her child moved away. The house was empty again. It stood empty for a long time. Teenagers would sneak in at night to prove their courage. Many later talked about hearing voices. One guy claimed he saw a man without eyes standing at the window. Another said he heard footsteps in the attic, even though he was alone. I decided to go there myself in 2002. There were 4 of us, teenagers, silly and curious. We took flashlights and went in the evening. The house smelled of damp and rot. The walls were peeling and the wallpaper was coming off. We laughed and joked until we heard it. Someone walked on the floor above. We went up to the 2nd floor. The rooms were empty, but in one of them stood an old wardrobe, and inside the wardrobe was the sound of breathing. We ran downstairs, beside ourselves with fear. When we ran outside, one of us turned around and swore a man was standing in the window, bald, and he was looking right at us. A few years later, the house burned down. Officially, it was arson, but people said that firefighters found strange symbols burned into the floor of the basement. Now, there's just an empty lot in its place. Nothing has been built. The grass that grows there is black, and locals stay away. And every time I walk past, I feel a gaze on me. This story is real. I saw that house myself, heard the neighbors' stories, and most importantly, I once heard footsteps there. There is no explanation, but I know that evil sometimes remains in the walls, and the house on the outskirts was proof of that.